Hello everyone, Poohead189 here, and today we're going to be doing an investigative look at a very contentious topic in the modern Dragon Ball fandom. That being, as you no doubt could tell from the title, was Yamcha a cheater or not? But before that, we need to have a brief discussion, because I will not only be talking about if Yamcha is guilty of cheating or not, but also the discourse around it. We'll have a talk, adult to adult, on a few key things before we dive into it. And to be honest, I edited this script multiple times because I feel as if it's going to be difficult to not make some people uncomfortable. See, I think being kind and understanding are virtues that we should hold more highly as a society. And I'm hesitant to really deep dive into some discourse because it could alienate some people. But the reason I even put this topic on the poll was, I was going to make this topic before at some point, probably after I made 1,000 subs. But when the news on Yamcha's voice actor came out, when it came to the controversy around him, people started bringing up, Yamcha being a cheater again and how this is, similar to his character. And it bothered a lot of people. It kind of bothered me, but a lot of my friends were pretty bothered, on social media. And, people started arguing about it and it got ugly. And there was just a lot of bad discourse around it. And I thought a lot of it was in bad taste. And as I was saying, I am hesitant to really deep dive into some discourse because it could alienate some people. However, I realize there is no way to make this video without doing that. And so I decided, eventually, to be unapologetically blunt. But I would also like to say that no matter what I say is likely or true in this video, your headcanon and your opinion is valid. That being said, here it is, a video where I do my best not to hold back. As many of you no doubt know, a lot of people are really stupid. Particularly online people. Particularly online people who are a part of fandoms. I say that as one myself. And one of the most stupid things about fandoms and the people in them are their value systems and how they view morality. As some of you might have noticed, but many of you likely haven't, for some reason, modern fans tend to view acts of sexual misconduct and romantic misconduct a level far above acts that are, in reality, inherently worse. Here's an example. Let's pretend we're watching a new anime, and we have two protagonists. Protagonist 1 walks into a bar, and he sees a girl who just got over a bad breakup, and the girl who has gotten herself very drunk. Protagonist 1 sees she is vulnerable, takes advantage of that girl's sorrow and inebriation, and makes out with her. Then the scene switches to Protagonist 2. Number 2 walks towards another bar across the street. He steps into the bar, opens his jacket to reveal there is a bomb strapped to his chest, and detonates 5 pounds of C4, killing him and everyone else inside the bar. Protagonist 1 finds out about it, and he and the girl he took advantage of become a thing over their shared shock of what just transpired, even though the protagonist is not that shocked and wants a girlfriend. End of anime. Now, which is worse, Protagonist 1 or Protagonist 2? The obvious answer is the fucking guy that ended 20 lives. But people on social media, talking about the anime, will really only talk about how much of a scumbag Protagonist 1 was, call him a creep, and say he gives them the ick. And no one would mention Protagonist 2 committing an act of domestic terrorism. Hell, they might even post pictures of a tragic backstory or how at least he helps the old woman who lives next door to him with her garbage every Tuesday. That's just how fandoms are. You can do the same thing with, let's say, who is more problematic, Master Roshi or King Piccolo? Master Roshi is a pervert, criminally, while King Piccolo is responsible for destruction and death on an untold scale, as well as torture, as he tortured Kid Goku, and even racism, considering how he views humans. But people would vote for Roshi. And this is not defending Roshi or any acts of, romantic or sexual misconduct, because that stuff is criminal and should obviously be condemned. But it would still pale in comparison to King Piccolo's actions. and yet people in the fandom would really not care, as if they have blinds in their eyes. And sure, some of it is a meme, but people meme enough to where they start falling for their own joke. The reason why I bring this up is because of the reason people bring up Yamcha being a cheater. Usually it is brought up because people either dislike Yamcha, people say Yamcha is not a good match for Bulma, unlike Vegeta, and that Yamcha doesn't deserve good things and Vegeta deserves to be with Bulma. A lot of the time, it's Vegeta and Bulma shippers or enjoyers making Yamcha look as bad as possible, ignoring the fact that Vegeta has caused more death and suffering than every dictator mankind has ever known, and he did it all with a smile. They ignore the fact Vegeta has threatened Bulma's life more than once, condemned her to death twice, and honestly wasn't even in a real relationship with her until after Cell was defeated. He also did not redeem himself for nearly anything until the late Boo arc as well. And you might say I'm taking this stuff too seriously, but that's my exact point. I don't think anyone should take this shit seriously. But people do. And if people will call Yamcha a scumbag for some hearsay over cheating, then you have to be consistent with your moral outrage, and you have to be consistent with other characters as well. Hell, even Goku letting Piccolo and Vegeta and Frieza go, just so he could fight them again, is monumentally bad. That's like giving North Korea a nuclear device because it's exciting. And also, I know he didn't let Frieza go to fight him again, but you know what I mean. Like, if we got Vegeta the Genocider, Piccolo the Demon King, and Tien the Assassin, and people are talking about Yamcha cheating like it's something on par with those things, like what are we even doing here? Here's the thing, and let me give some context. Some of you might not know this, but I am a professional author. I've had a number of short works of fiction published in magazines and online publications. And as a fiction writer, one of the first things you learn is that you should not hold a fictional character as accountable as you would a real person. Because if you did, then your stories would be boring as fuck. I write good guys that have killed. However, if I were to meet someone in real life who has killed, even in self-defense, there would be a stigma. But you see, fiction is a place where characters can say and do things that would be appalling in real life, all for our entertainment. However, if you do judge a character based on something like, say, Yamcha potentially cheating, then you need to do it across the board. You need to be consistent in your moral outrage. Yamcha is one of the most unproblematic characters in the manga, even compared to Bulma. However, people ignore that and watch Vegeta attempt to blow up planet Earth with his Gallic gun, leave Bulma and Baby Trunks in an exploding plane, and watch Krillin potentially get killed by Perfect Cell and call Krillin an insect as he lies there limp. But who cares, right? Because it was stated Yamcha was a cheater, so none of that matters. Now, I do know one reason people talk about it, and that's because people take ships very seriously, which I find somewhat strange in the Dragon Ball fandom. Toriyama himself said that he was not a romance writer, and that he purposefully wrote as little romance as possible because he was just not good at it. Hell, look at Bulma's two relationships. It's clear Bulma and Yamcha got together so they did not need to keep searching for the Dragon Balls, and it's explicit Vegeta and Bulma got together because Toriyama needed a Saiyan father for Trunks who was not Goku. Both relationships occurred because it was needed for the plot, not for actual character development. But even in an action manga series where there's more intrigue and horror than romance, people take ships very seriously. And that's not to say you shouldn't enjoy ships. I have a few likes and dislikes myself. If you like Vegeta with Bulma, that's great. But whenever anyone mentions ships, arguments get very serious in fandoms, which is likely another reason why the Yamcha cheating controversy comes up. Though again, I think if you're going to judge him for that, be consistent and hold other characters up to the same standard. But, all that aside, since people really care about this, today I'm going to provide an in-depth look at what, for some reason, is a hugely contentious topic, without bias or scruples, without vying for one ship or the other, on if Yamcha was, in fact, a cheater or not. Full disclosure is, I like Yamcha. He's not my favorite, but I like him a lot and he's definitely in my top 5. And again, while I like Vegeta a bit less, I don't think you should hold either of them to real-world standards. But, since we're doing that, let's focus on this. I am not here to defend Yamcha. I am here to get to the bottom of this because that's what you voted for. So let's get into the main topic. First off, we need to all agree on what cheating is. And that sounds weird, but when someone says they were cheating, it can mean a dozen different things. Some people say cheating is one person in a committed relationship sleeping with someone outside of it. Others say that cheating is flirting with someone outside of your relationship. Some say watching porn is cheating, and others equate cheating to liking an Instagram post. And so when someone on a forum or social media says Yamcha is a cheater, it could very well mean something entirely different than what occurred or what other people perceive it to mean, if Yamcha even did it. So we need to keep that in mind going forward. In my experience, most disagreements do not occur because people disagree on their main points, but it's because they have a fundamental misunderstanding of a topic. And so when someone argues Yamcha is a cheater and Yamcha isn't a cheater, they're not arguing about the points or if Yamcha technically cheated. They're arguing on whether or not Yamcha is a homewrecker. And they don't know that because they haven't agreed on what cheating is. Okay, now for the meat of the video. We shall first discuss the pro-cheater argument, or the reasons people think or say he is a cheater. Then we will look at the cons, or why people think he is not, and then we will weigh them and see where we are. Now, for the reasons people say he is a cheater, there are two main pieces of evidence that are honestly pretty strong. The first is a panel in the original manga. No doubt most of you have seen it, where future Trunks is talking to Goku and tells him why he heard Bulma and Yamcha did not work out, and how Vegeta got Bulma pregnant. I will put the viz up on the screen next to the original Japanese. I had my good pal and translator, friend of the channel Dave, to translate the original Japanese panel in the most literal way possible, so there is no confusion as to a viz mistranslation. And I'll read it here. Trunks says, Yamcha-san was... I hear he was flirtatious / prone to adultery... She, meaning Bulma, lost her mind and broke up with him. Around that time, she saw my lonely-looking dad and they somehow got together... But they're not married... Because that's just how mom is. Literally, that's my mom's nature. Now, let's break that down. My friend Dave is far more fluent in Japanese than I am, but I dabble myself and had a discussion with Dave. The term used for flirtatious and adultery. Oh, and also, just to show that this is an unbiased video, one of Dave's favorite characters, and I'm pretty certain his favorite character is Vegeta. So just letting you guys know that. The term used for flirtatious and adultery is uwakisho, which in the most literal translation means floating feelings. And it is a term that appears to denote someone in a relationship who either flirts or has relations with someone outside of the relationship. Now, we then look at how most modern Japanese people use it, and it seems to be most often used for actual cheating, at least nowadays. However, there is a small bit of wiggle room there to mean being flirtatious to other people outside of the relationship, and we need to remember this is a panel that was nearly 40 years ago, and language does change. So there is a chance it could have been used for flirting instead, particularly back then. Not that flirting is still not scummy, however, it might matter depending on what you perceive as cheating. Though if it does just mean flirtation, it's nothing Bulma hasn't done as well before. Then we go to a quote of Toriyama's often cited, though that is technically not true. The quote is from a 2004 interview with the Japanese voice actor for Yamcha, Toru Furuya, when asked about why Bulma and Yamcha did not end up together as husband and wife. He gives a small paragraph for an answer, and at the end of it, he quotes, Toriyama said that Yamcha was a cheater, when asked about why they broke up. I'll read the quote here. That was a shock. I often spoke with Hiromi Suru-san, who plays Bulma. Both she and I thought Bulma and Yamcha would end up together. And for Vegeta of all people, it really was a shock. So when I met with Toriyama-sensei, I complained, why did it have to be like this? Then Toriyama-sensei said, come on, Yamcha's a cheater. And then there's a laugh. Unfortunately, I cannot find the original interview in Japanese proper, Kanzenshu does have good translators, but a lot of the time translators convert certain words, phrases, and terms into English in a more casual manner to be easier to read by fans. So instead, let's hear Toru Furuya telling the same story at a convention.
もちろんヤムチャは、ブルマと結婚するつもりでいました。ですから、僕もそして、ブルマをやってた鶴ひろみさんもびっくりしました。
Well, I always thought that Yamcha was going to marry Bulma, so not only I, but also Hiromi Tsuru, who played Bulma, both of us were surprised.
で原作者の鳥山明先生になぜそうなっちゃったんですかと聞いたらば、ヤムちゃんが浮気者だからですと言われました。
Now, I listened to the audio multiple times, and as did my friend Dave, and we heard Toru Furuya use the same root word uwaki from Uwaki Show. Now, he said something slightly different than Uwaki Show in the audio. We couldn't really tell exactly what it was, but it's the same root word of uwaki. And to triple check on the meaning of the word, I found another talented translator explaining the difference between furin, which is adultery, and uwaki, uwaki being a more broad term for cheating. But it does mean some form of cheating. That's very explicit. So, we've looked at the two main sources of evidence that Yamcha has cheated. And a lot of people would consider neither of them evidence, but just straight proof. I mean, even if there is potential wiggle room with uwaki, it still easily leans towards cheating. But now let's look at why some people don't think those two items are proof. There's two main reasons on that end, and a few smaller ones. First of all, you might like Yamcha and you don't want him to be a cheater. But of course, that's just plain biased, and simply is not evidence. Secondly, however, and more importantly, people don't believe it because it's out of Yamcha's character. And that is no small thing. The Dragon Ball fandom tends to hold statements, be they in the manga or by Toriyama, as ironclad. And I'm not here to say statements don't matter. They're usually the best source of any information we get. However, people in the fandom are very guilty of taking statements and then just stopping there. My close Dragon Ball friends have always been that way, and I've always differed from them on that end. Like, let me give an example of how the Dragon Ball fandom views statements. Let's say, during the days before the Cell games, Oolong is flipping through the channels at Master Roshi's house, and Krillin walks by, asking Oolong if there's anything good on. And without showing us the TV, Oolong says, "Yeah, Cell is opening for Weezer at Madison Square Gardens. Other than that, nothing." And Toriyama's intention is that being a joke. More than half of the fucking fandom will not take that as sarcasm, and they would then want to hear Cell sing and dance. And eventually, they would make enough noise, and an interviewer would ask Toriyama on how Cell opened for Weezer, and Toriyama would play along, because he loves to bullshit, and say how good Cell's singing voice is, as another joke. And then 80% of the brilliant, lovely fandom that I am a part of will say it's canon how Cell opened for Weezer, when it literally was a joke that Toriyama wanted to fuck around about. My point is, statements by characters are important, but so is context and feats. I differ from most of the fandom because I take feats into account far more than most, be they soft or hard feats. Now, a hard feat is something a character does, and a soft feat is how a character acts. Here's an example for both. Vegeta increasing his speed and moving too fast for Kui to see is a hard feat, and it proves that Vegeta can move far faster than Kui. A soft feat is Android 16 grabbing Cell in an attempt to blow up the bomb within his chest. The bomb does not blow up, and so there is no proof that the bomb can kill or harm Cell. However, Android 16 clearly thinks and acts as if it can, so we can surmise that it likely could with a soft feat. He acted as if it could hurt him, and so that is what we can guess. Well, Yamcha being faithful or unfaithful isn't your usual sort of feat, but throughout the entirety of the series, Yamcha has a lot of soft feats that go in his favor. Yamcha has been less flirtatious, less fickle, and more faithful than Bulma has at every turn. In fact, Bulma seems to get mad at Yamcha not because he has an interest in other girls, but because other girls have an interest in him. and you might say that he could be out there flirting, but when Bulma, this is after Bulma is mad at Yamcha for getting the attention of girls, when Bulma calls Yamcha to bring him out to fight during the Red Ribbon Army saga, Yamcha is ecstatic because the city is full of weaklings, meaning it's far more probable that he hasn't been out flirting, but he's spent his time street fighting. And Bulma seems to not hesitate to call him, and Yamcha does not answer the phone guiltily, as if he's done anything wrong. Because, like Bulma's mother says, she doesn't like that girls notice Yamcha, not that Yamcha notices other girls. Which means that this entire reason that Bulma is mad at Yamcha is Bulma's short-lived jealousy. And let's go to the Android Saga, when Yamcha and Bulma arrive, and Bulma is carrying baby Trunks. The only one there that is frustrated or forlorn is Yamcha, which is strange, because if Bulma got super mad at Yamcha from some discovery or of secret cheating, you'd think she'd either be the one frustrated, or she would not want to be around Yamcha because of some massive, horrible thing he did. But Bulma doesn't even look Yamcha's way. Additionally, we need to recall that Yamcha's main goal in his life is to get married, and eventually that turned into getting married to Bulma. And considering Bulma said she doesn't even live with Vegeta, and calls him a jerk despite having his son, if Yamcha hadn't already said that they had broken up a while ago, I'd have assumed Yamcha and Bulma were still together despite the baby. And while none of this disproves the statements from Trunks and Toriyama, it makes you wonder why the manga was portrayed the way it was, and then it makes you realize that the two statements themselves are both secondary sources, Trunks reiterating what future Bulma said, and Yamcha's voice actor reiterating what Toriyama said. So let's look at what future Trunks said one more time. What we need to realize is that Trunks is telling Goku something from, number 1, a biased source, being future Bulma, and 2, he's talking about an alternate universe Yamcha. So he's not talking about this Yamcha, it's an alternate universe one. And obviously the main response to that is, well, they broke up anyway, so it has to be the same reason regardless of the timelines. But then we need to think about what Trunks said. Trunks says he heard that Yamcha was flirtatious or prone to cheating, which we know is not true, and if we simply translate Uwaki Sho as he cheated, we need to then take into account something else Bulma said, which Trunks later realizes he misinterpreted or Bulma lied. In fact, in the literal translation, Trunks does call his mom a liar. Anyway, the topic is concerning whether Vegeta had any good in him after Vegeta left Bulma and baby Trunks to die in an exploding plane. And then when Trunks confronted him about it, Vegeta said that he really doesn't give a fuck about them. And then Trunks remembers what his mom said about Vegeta and why she got with him. And I'll put it up on the screen. Now, of course, we can surmise from this that either Bulma saw something in Vegeta that wasn't there, or that Vegeta wasn't wholly evil to her. But considering he left her and baby Trunks to die, the second explanation is not likely. But this is important, because from this future Trunks thought, we can glean something very important. Vegeta does not become a character that is not evil until the intervention of future Trunks, and his death at the hands of Cell, something the alternate timeline Vegeta did not get the chance to experience. So there are two ways you can interpret the text from that. 1, future Bulma is an unreliable narrator, and she either lied or she wasn't at least fully truthful to Trunks. Or 2, alternate characters are different than main timeline characters, as in, maybe alternate Vegeta was a better person than main timeline Vegeta at the time. Either way, this means that Trunks' statement about Yamcha is not set in stone, because either future Bulma can't be 100% trusted, or there's a potential that alternate Yamcha is different than main timeline Yamcha. Now, before you get excited, none of this disproves Yamcha being a cheater, but there's wiggle room to interpret it. Now let's go to the Toriyama statement. This one you can't get around very easily, though I will say that people do tend to take Toriyama's stuff a bit too seriously because he does love to bullshit. Like, he trolled an interviewer once and said he wanted to become the old man that peeks in on his daughter in the shower, and people took that seriously and started calling him a degenerate when it's pretty explicit he was just fucking around. And we don't know his relationship with Toru Furuya, as in Yamcha's voice actor, but considering the manga seems to lean the other way from the statement, I won't blame someone if someone thinks Akira Toriyama wanted to troll Toru Furuya because In the Kanzenshuu interview, Toru Furuya laughs after he says what Toriyama said, like it was a joke. However, while one can interpret it as a joke, and it honestly easily could have been, and I freely tell you I wouldn't judge you if you did, I unfortunately cannot make that assumption for this video, because I need to weigh these facts together, and while it being a joke is easily plausible, we don't know. So, and again, I'm not here as a Yamcha apologist. I'm here to look at every small detail and find the truth. And despite the fact I genuinely think both breakdowns of those statements are plausible, and I think you'd have to be lying to say they're not possible because you want an easy answer, what are we to say at the conclusion of the video? Like weighing how people say Yamcha cheated and weighing why people think Yamcha didn't cheat or why people think it's a character assassination. Let's just answer it now. Did Yamcha cheat? Well, while I do have to say it's eventually up to you guys to decipher all the points that I made to make up your own mind, I'll tell you my opinion. Was Yamcha in a committed relationship with Bulma, saw some cute girl, and fucked her, ruining his relationship and potential marriage with Bulma? Probably not. Was Yamcha unfaithful in Bulma's eyes in their usual off-and-on relationship, either by not telling a girl who was interested in him to buzz off, or talking to another woman in front of Bulma, or Bulma and Yamcha having a fight and Yamcha talking to another girl during that time? Probably. That seems the most likely. And that would be the closest thing to Yamcha being 1, technically unfaithful, but 2, closer to Yamcha's character. And I know this video won't solve everything, because people tend to talk about this on social media, and you can't bring a nuanced topic on social media like this. And even at the end of this video, he was unfaithful in Bulma's eyes, and so people would just say, oh, he's a cheater, and they'll just, slap it on there. Again, if someone says that, they likely have a bias on their own, and they probably do not hold other characters accountable in the way that they should. Or they just take this shit too seriously. So yes, was Yamcha a cheater? Not in the way a lot of people likely think, but in my opinion, to Bulma's skewed view, it's likely. Okay guys, thanks so much for listening to the video. I really apologize if you thought I assassinated any character here, or if I was, biased in any way, or if I said something that made you uncomfortable. I apologize. Thanks so much for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I always love your comments. Even if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your comments. Okay guys, thank you so much. Have a good day.